What up, guys? John here back at it again with another reaction style video. I'm a little clogged up, been sick the last few days, but we're still getting here, we're still getting at it. I had a comment to do a reaction to Star Wars Theory, why Vader's eyes kept changing in the Obi-Wan Kenobi fight. Love Star Wars Theories, love all the stuff he does, so I'm excited about this one. I haven't yet watched this video. I kind of already had my own thoughts behind why this is happening, but I'm interested to see what Star Wars Theory says. Let's hop in.
Good morning, my fellow Sith Lords. How's it going, everybody? It's 11:30 in the morning, and this is early for me. So, today we're going to talk about why Anakin Vader's eyes kept changing back and forth. I see this in a lot of the comments, and during the live stream, a lot of people were like, "Did you guys see that? Why does his eyes change?" Okay, this is actually interesting, because this is something that I put into my fan film.
Lord Vader?
As he wishes.
A lot of people sort of were wondering like why his eyes changed too, so this is a great opportunity to talk about it. In the show, when Vader and Kenobi were fighting, and we got his helmet slashed open, and if you notice, it was actually the left side, and Ahsoka had slashed the right side. And I mentioned this in the breakdown, but Luke was the only one that could take the actual whole mask off, so it's kind of poetic, like that's kind of nice. But we see as he's talking to Obi-Wan, his eyes are normal blue, and then they're Sith yellow, and then they're normal blue, and then they're Sith yellow. We also see the reflection of the red on his face and the blue on his face of Obi-Wan's lightsaber and Vader's lightsaber. This is to portray, I believe it's just a directing thing, to portray Anakin's struggle and his sort of limbo in the Force itself, that he's, you know, mostly on the dark side now, but he's still struggling and conflicted with the light side.
See, that's exactly how I took it when I watched it too. I was like, okay, he's having struggle because he's fighting his old master again all these years later, but he still doesn't know if it's the right thing. So there are parts of him that maybe are remembering those old times, and they're conflicting with his new and current version of himself, which is Vader. But then there's flickers back to Vader, and it just back and forth, and with the red and the blue, it was really good imagery. That's kind of how I interpreted it as well. So,
and this is exactly, I believe it was doubled down and confirmed by Palpatine at the end of the show, where he said, "Your love for your old master perhaps makes you weak," something like that, to that effect. And I believe this is very true. I believe, once again, Anakin lost to Obi-Wan, not because he couldn't beat him, but because he just was conflicted. You know, he couldn't pick one side of the Force to really sit on. He was sort of going back and forth, not all in it 100% all the time. And I think this is what caused him to lose once again. Now,
and also, like, if you think about it, like, his love for certain individuals is what caused him to go to the dark side, but it's also that very same love that keeps him from fully going to the dark side. It's what brings him back to the light, especially in the end, when that love for Luke eventually allows himself to be redeemed. It's he did the one thing that Jedi weren't supposed to, and it's show that love and emotion, and it took him way off the deep end, but it also allowed him to be reined back in. And in itself is kind of an equalization in the end. It's weird, but it's one good thing about his character that they keep throughout the entirety of the movies and into the show, is that he's a very emotional person, one that feels not only great pain, but great love, especially for his old master.
In Revenge of the Sith, I also think that he wasn't fully giving himself into the dark side, as when he was fighting, his eyes were blue. And when he's fully tapped into the dark side, full of hatred and rage and anger, his eyes are Sith yellow. So he has this soft spot for Obi-Wan, and it's kind of beautiful in a sense, but also it's, you know, it's kind of sad for him, because he just always loses. He never wins, and he sort of blames it on himself, probably. Now, there were certain moments in the show, in the episode, in the fight, where Vader's eyes were blue, and it was more so Anakin's voice where he was talking to Obi-Wan. Now, a lot of people are speculating online that, oh, this was Anakin, and then his his BPD split in, it kicked in, and it was Vader then once it was, Sith yellow and the red was on his face. I don't necessarily think it's like a split like that, like, traditionally how it psychologically would be, but I think it's more so like he is just torn between two different decisions. And I think he has to come to terms with what he really wants in his life. And I think, at the end of the day, a lot of people say Vader's a bad guy. He's done bad things, but I don't think he's a bad person at his core. He's still Anakin Skywalker, and he was a very nice person. I think he just really wanted to make his wife survive and learn the powers to keep her alive, and love makes you do crazy things, which is not justifying the things he did, but at the end of the day, he did his things because he was selfish, because he was power hungry, and because he wanted his wife to stay alive. So his motive wasn't like necessarily Sidious's, who is just evil and pure evil to the core. His motive was something a little bit different, albeit the result will be the same in the end. You're doing horrific things. But I believe it's for this reason that Vader isn't ever fully able to beat Obi-Wan or really attain his true power, because he's always conflicted. And we saw that with the light. We saw that as he was talking to Obi-Wan. He's like, "You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker." And then it switches, "I did." So I don't...
Well, like, going back to the, he's never fully dedicated to his cause. And if you look, Obi-Wan is fully dedicated to the light side, to trying to redeem Anakin, or at least win in each of those battles. And that's why he's able to. He understands what he's fighting for. Whereas Anakin, he's not fully dedicated to the dark side. He still has that light side in him, and he was never fully dedicated to the light side. He always had that dark side in him. He's never fully on one or the other. He's always teetering, whether he's on one extreme or the next. And I think that teetering is what really hinders him to fully become the individual he was supposed to.
I don't think in that moment necessarily that he was splitting. I think he knew what he wanted to say. I think that's why he started the sentence that way, as Vader. And I believe Vader and Anakin at this point are kind of just disillusioned and thinking that this is the only path. Until, of course, Luke comes in and he says, "It is too late for me, my son." Right? Like at that point, he's still Anakin as well, but he's just turned and tormented Anakin, right? It's like when Padme saw him on Mustafar, he was still Vader, he was still Anakin, but he was just had chosen a different path. He was corrupted and tormented by the dark side and by his decisions and his selfishness and all that. So I think there's no split, but I believe he is just so conflicted. So yeah, I think in that moment, his eyes were blue because he was sort of remembering Obi-Wan and remembering Anakin, and in the moment it wasn't allowing him to draw upon that power, draw upon that hatred, because those memories of Obi-Wan in an instance, in that moment were nice memories. He has a whole life with Obi-Wan Kenobi, and once he then starts to think about it a little more and be like, "No, but look where I am now. What did Obi-Wan do? He was responsible for Padme's death and blah, blah, blah." Whatever else he wants to blame Obi-Wan for. He was holding me back. Then his eyes will switch to red, to yellow. And then the Sith starts to feed on that anger and the hatred that he creates in his own mind for Obi-Wan. So I think for Anakin, it just takes a little longer for certain things to really kick in with the dark side. I think with things that are like very organic, like, the Tusken Raiders with his mom, I think that's like immediate, There is no pleasant memory with the Tuskens. But I think with Obi-Wan, that weakness, it will always be there because he always holds that soft spot for him. He may want to kill him, but I think he also at the same time misses him. And he probably just wants a hug at the end of the day. After all of this, after having done everything he's done and seeing that, nothing's really bringing her back. So I really loved how they added the blue eyes and the Sith eyes to show that conflict, whereas Sidious always got the Sith eyes going on, always evil, always tapped into the dark side, and always ready to go and fight. Now, why didn't he have it?
I mean, that's exactly the way I thought about it too. It's like an interesting dynamic. I also wonder what it would have taken to convince Anakin to no longer be Darth Vader. on Mustafar? Would it have would it have taken Padme, Obi-Wan, and Yoda to convince him? You know, bringing 3PO and R2 in there, bringing other individuals who are close to him, and like obviously in the movie Ahsoka wasn't around, but having the Clone Wars in there, if like Ahsoka had been there with everyone, would they have been able to convince him to come back to the light side? I think that would have been interesting as well.
As Palpatine, of course, he couldn't. It's not like you can run around with Sith eyes being like, I'm not a Force user. I'm not the Sith Lord you're looking for. But with Anakin and Vader, who was, originally in the light side of the Force, I think it's much more difficult for him to fully commit unless he's doing really atrocious things. And even like after the youngling scene, he still didn't have those eyes. When he flew to Mustafar and after he took out the Separatists, that's when his eyes properly changed. But then, of course, Padme ruined it because she arrived. And he was like, "Oh, Padme, there's no dark side to pull from here." And then Obi-Wan, there's no dark side to pull from, but I still hate him. I'm mad at him. I got to do what I must, to execute Order 66 and save Padme's life. He had gone crazy. He was power hungry. We all know this. But at the end of the day, I don't think he was fully committed to the dark side like Sidious had wanted, and this is why he was always testing him. This is why in the comics he was always sending assassins after Vader to prove himself and to make sure that he was committed to the dark side. And when Vader said, "No, I serve only you, Master. Kenobi is nothing. Kenobi means nothing to me." Sidious was like grinning. But that's not the end of his trials. He's going to keep freaking testing him and being like, yo, why are you so conflicted? Why are you so weak for Obi-Wan? And the reason is, well, because Obi-Wan is like his best friend, So it's going to be difficult for him to properly give in all the time. And I think this goes hand in hand with his return as Anakin in Return of the Jedi. And I also think that it is the reason why he just can never beat Obi-Wan, really. And A New Hope doesn't count because Obi-Wan full on just gave himself to the Force.
Yeah.
And I guess that was all, from the teachings that Qui-Gon gave him, which I'm very excited to hear about, learn about, see, and, dive into hopefully in Kenobi Season 2. That'd be nice. Let me know what you guys think about this scene of Anakin Vader.
It's definitely a cool setup. There was a lot of like issues throughout the Kenobi series, but they also had a lot of cool things and little added scenes and stuff like that get you thinking, that tie in to not only the movies and the shows and the whole relationships and everything like that. I mean, that's basically how I kind of thought about it from watching the show overall. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys thought down below, if you guys had kind of come to the same conclusion or not. Like, comment, subscribe, and like always, I'll see you on the next video.